If Supergirl is too corny for you, don't worry, Marvel's got the answer to that. Marvel's Jessica Jones is the fourth television series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the first two being Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter. It's the second installment in Marvel's Netflix Defenders sub-franchise that they're working on, the first one being Daredevil. Marvel's Jessica Jones is based on the Jessica Jones character that was created by Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos in the Alias comic that was published by Marvel's Max Comics imprint that published more adult comics. The series is developed by Melissa Rosenberg, who, despite having experience writing and producing for shows like Ally McBeal, The O.C., and Dexter, her most notable work that she was involved with would probably be the Twilight movies, in that she was the screenwriter for all 5 of those movies. Now, that fact might raise a red flag for a lot of people, but when you consider the fact that those movies were slavishly faithful to the books, like almost word for word, you can't really blame Rosenberg for that. She was just simply doing her job, which is basically just copy and paste whatever happens in the books and make sure that it fits the 2.5-hour time limit. Thankfully, her work in the Twilight series does not show in this show. This series stars Krysten Ritter as the titular Jessica Jones. She's a self-employed private investigator for Alias Investigations, which is based in her apartment in one of the lesser parts of New York. She has super strength. She has super durability in that she is slightly stronger and more durable than just other people, and she possibly can also fly, or at the very least she can jump and leap pretty far. The series starts off with her working as a private investigator while occasionally having episodes of post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, this is caused by a pretty dark past in which she was under the control of a very evil mind control villain by the name of Kilgrave, played excellently by David Tennant. Just imagine him doing his Doctor Who thing, but as a psychopath. She thought she had escaped Kilgrave for good. She thought he died. But by the end of the episode, it turns out that he is still alive and that he is going to be the big bad for this show. Now, comic book fans know Kilgrave as the Purple Man. The Purple Man has this ability to make people do what he wants them to do, just by simply speaking his voice. It's not so much like Professor X, in which he can just do things with his mind like this or like that. He says, I want you to do this, or you want to do this, or go do that, and they'll do it. They have to. They have no choice but to do what he asks them to do. It could be anything from moving out of his way, to staying silent, to jumping off a building. If you really think about it, Kilgrave is probably one of the most dangerous villains in all of the MCU, which is why, in my opinion, he is the most frightening villain. He is the most terrifying villain. The best villain that the MCU has made so far. I know in my Daredevil Season 1 review I have indicated that actually should go to Wilson Fisk. Well, that was then, this is now. Sorry, Wilson, you've been replaced by someone more dangerous than you. Mike Colter stars as the comic book character Luke Cage, who, in the comics, Jessica Jones and Luke Cage have kind of an on and off relationship that, in the comics, eventually develops into them getting married and having a kid. Obviously, this is the starting point. They might go that direction in the long run, who knows? But Luke and Jessica have an on and off thing. Maybe it's a one-night stand, maybe not, but there's definitely more to those characters, like deeper secrets within that one another doesn't want to tell. Like, for one thing, Luke has indestructible skin. They're gonna do that in the show. And because Luke has indestructible skin, that's where Luke and Jessica start to get a little closer, because they have a commonality, if you will. Jessica's best friend is Patricia Walker, or Trish Walker, played by Rachel Taylor. Trish has a talk show in New York City, and used to have a career as a child actor that she has mixed to negative feelings about. There'll be more to that as you watch the show, as discovers more of a past, a childhood past between these two characters, but they are the best friends of the show. Will Traval plays Will Simpson, an NYPD sergeant who was under Kilgrave's control when you first meet him. He eventually is released from his control and tries to help Jessica out. However, one thing she doesn't really account for is his former military black ops background that starts coming into some problems on the show. Erin Moriarty plays a young college student at NYU by the name of Holt Schlottman. At the end of the first episode, she does something really horrible as a result of her being under Kilgrave's control. She is another one of Kilgrave's victims in the same way that Jessica is, so therefore those two share a commonality. It is through this that the series shows just how terrifying, how terrible a person Kilgrave is. It's also where the rape metaphors, the female disempowerment by male psychopath, themes, those type of themes come into play in a very mature way, in a way that a lot of TV shows don't really touch on, or they like to pay lip service to in a way that's easy to understand, in the way CBS crime shows do it. But here, those themes are really explored. Eka Darville plays Malcolm Ducasse, who is the drug addict neighbor that lives close to Jessica. However, he's more than just simply a druggie that lives next door. He becomes kind of an ally for Jessica, and turns out to be a bigger reason for his drug abuse in the first place. And then Carrie-Anne Moss, who you might recognize from the Matrix movies, plays Jeri Hogarth, an ally of Jones, who is also a very powerful attorney. And she helps Jessica a lot with the cases and helping her bring the right amount of evidence so she can win her cases for clients and stuff like that. Marvel's Jessica Jones is quite an accomplishment for Marvel. This is probably their boldest series they've ever done. Whereas Daredevil, yeah, he was a vigilante, a dark personality, but it was kind of the same thing as Batman with all the gadgetry and the money stigma. This breaks its own new ground for Marvel. She is a superhero in theory, but, her powers aren't that important. Her origin doesn't even play that big a part in the show. Her origin is hinted at and even thought of as kind of a mystery plot, but that doesn't get really that much explored in this show because, hey, they got an evil David Tennant on the loose, so they gotta take care of that problem on the show. And because of the bold directions that this show goes is why I think this is probably the best thing Marvel has done so far. I know I said that for Daredevil, and you know what? Yeah, these Netflix shows that Marvel's coming out with are really smartly put together, and this one is their best one so far. This show has a great storyline. Its lead actress is very good. I mean, I hardly think of Krysten Ritter also as Jane from Breaking Bad or that bitch that lived in Apartment 23. David Tennant plays probably one of the best TV villains this year. Probably one of the best this 2015 year, and definitely the best one so far in the 2015-2016 season. Granted, we're only 4 months into that season, so, well, really 5, since it really kind of starts in June if we're going by Emmy eligibility. It doesn't feel like you're watching Daredevil. It feels like you're watching more noir. There's a lot more psychological thriller. There's some action, to be sure. And some of it's well executed, but you're not going to be expecting the stunt spectacular that was Daredevil. That's not the big focus of this show. One thing I really appreciate about this show is, Jessica is a PI, and there's no mistaking that she's a PI. It doesn't get lost. In Daredevil, I felt Matt Murdock's profession as a lawyer kind of got lost in the mix. Occasionally they mention he's a lawyer, but I was expecting more of kind of a court drama vigilante action hybrid. We didn't get... In fact, I think there was only one courtroom scene in that entire show. And that kind of bummed me out, because I was expecting more courtroom stuff, and courtroom scenes are great. They can be some of the most compelling scenes you'll ever watch. And I was disappointed that Daredevil didn't do too much of that, at least with Jessica Jones. She is still doing PI stuff. She is a detective first. So, while you're watching a thriller, you're also watching her solve clues and all of that. Not quite in the same way that Sherlock does it, but she is investigating. Because she's a private investigator, and that's what she is, first and foremost. If you have a Netflix account, I'd highly recommend that you check this show out. you don't even have to be a Marvel fan to really enjoy the show. Like, it doesn't feel too superhero-ish. I mean, yeah, she has powers that make her stronger, more powerful than most people, and their villain is a telepath, but it deals with those themes with some great elements of realism. And the Marvel references, like, they acknowledge that an alien attack happened in New York, but there's not really too much of that. Even when Rosario Dawson makes an appearance towards the end of the season, doesn't feel out of place. Yeah, it implies that she's dealt with other superhero people before, but it doesn't become that big of a thing. It doesn't get in the way of your viewing. You don't feel like you're lost because this character is there. And anyone that has an interest in strong female characters, because we can always use more with them, we don't see them too much in comparison to strong male characters in decades upon decades of patriarchy, if I'm going to get really political into this. If you're into that, you should really, really check out this show. Female empowerment themes taken to the adult max. As I said earlier, Supergirl, they have themes of, yeah, a girl can totally do that, at least in the pilot episode. I'll get to more on Supergirl when that season ends come next spring. But that's a show you sit down with your family and you can show to your little daughter to show, she can do anything in life. Jessica Jones is not that show. Jessica Jones is not a show you show to your kids. There's too much sex, too much cursing, and the violence, especially later on in the season, the violence can be a little disturbing. You're dealing with a psychopath, so you're going to see some more creative ways of killing people. This is the most adult drama that Marvel's come out with. The most adult story that Marvel television specifically, but the whole Marvel filmed thing has come up with so far, and it's really, really well done. And congrats to Melissa Rosenberg, the showrunner, as well as her staff of writers and directors and the producers of the show for making this happen. They haven't announced whether it'll get renewed for a season 2 or not. There's a couple things left open to make it possible for a season 2 to exist. I just don't know how they could possibly top the villain they have on this show, the big bad, the driving force of the plot, which is the Kilgrave character, because, wow. I mean, you just have to watch that show and see David Tennant play that part and see the things that character does. Because next season, obviously, they're going to have to get another big bad. I know the big bad for season 2 of Daredevil is going to be Punisher, played by Jon Bernthal, so that's going to be interesting. The big bad for season 2 of Jessica Jones following up Kilgrave? I'd hate to be in the writer's room to come up with that idea. Thanks for watching my review of the excellent Marvel's Jessica Jones. Please check it out when you get a chance. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.